Order. It is now 6 p.m. Can we have a roll call, please, Brenda?
Yes. Mr. Green? Mr. Ulrich?
Here.
Mr. Kaiser?
Present.
Mr. Baggery?
Here.
Mr. Stone?
Here.
Mr. Curtis?
Here.
Mr. Berg?
Here.
Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do you have any additions or changes to the agenda?
No, there's no changes.
Well, I do. We're going to move
Well,
the two closed sessions to the end of the meeting.
so we were going to move items 16 through 23 ahead of item 13.
Where we're going to put.
So that means we close out the meeting essentially before the closed session.
13 and 14.
No, we won't, no. Yeah,
Or
the
13.
meeting was to be open.
Yeah. Or 13 and 14, the end, whichever way you want to do it.
That's the way I was thinking about it.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And then
Any
24 will
discussion on that?
be the last.
All right. I don't have any public speaker cards. Is there any public who would like to speak? Q. Okay, consent items. We have the approval of minutes and review of disbursements.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Berg?
Yes.
Mr. Baggery?
Yes. Thank you. Our action items, beginning with item 8, is Sewer System Management Plan, lovingly called the SSMP. Flow Monitoring Equipment, Budget Adjustment Number 2019-12. Jeff?
So according to our discharge permit and state requirements for SSMP, we are required to professionally monitor our system to keep track of the flow, the hydraulics of the flow throughout the entire system. They don't say you have to have 100 monitors or whatever, but they say you have to manage your system. And over the years, we've had a number of areas that we have continuously monitored through meters of two kinds. One that are continuous flow monitors, giving us flow literally every 10 or 15 seconds, and some that are alarms only if there is some surge or surcharge in the manholes. So we maintain a system of about 22 different meters throughout the system. 5 of them are continuous connections to our SCADA system. The remaining are a variety of flow alarms and data alarms, either through phone or through radio connections. All of those radio and phone connections, if there's any anomaly, automatically page our on-call collection system operator that there's a problem, they have to respond. So for about 2 years now, we've been playing with different kinds of flow meters from the different manufacturers. They all work slightly different based on their ultrasonic kind of technology. The main issue that we've had over the last couple of years is some types of systems in some locations don't work as well because of cell service coverage or radio coverage or satellite coverage. And so we've finally gotten through sort of all of the, no, there's something wrong with our system, there's something wrong with how you're using it, blah, blah, blah. And so we are going to weed out the meters in the locations that don't work, or the meters that we have problems with their radio or satellite or telephone connections, and go to a system of meters and technology that allows us to know what's going on with our system and be in response to what we're required to do by the state. So this is sort of that culmination of a couple of years worth of effort in terms of looking at the data and looking at the various systems. Some systems work great, they just don't work great in all our locations.
Did you have your hand up?
Yes.
Pleasure of the board. We've got to do this. We've got to keep the system flowing and monitored.
Move A, B, and C.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Could you call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Berg?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
Yes.
Mr. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Baggerly?
Yes, thank you. Item 9 is Human Resource Policy Update, Resolution number 2018-15.
So we met with the Personnel Committee for a couple of items. This is one of them, and had a real long discussion about accrual of vacation hours, how employees use those vacation hours, some of the changes that we're seeing in the labor market with the different generations. And I think the overall conversation was, given that the demographics of our workforce is changing, we have a lot of situations where kids, grandparents, parents are all living together and caring for these multi-generation families, that people use vacation, account for it differently, and use it differently. And so one of the things we wanted to do to sort of be in line with what people are doing is allow them the flexibility to use their vacation time they earn however they want to use it. Some people may take a typical 2-week summer vacation, but many people now with families and kids, their vacations are all over the board. They've got elderly parents they're taking care of, and so this allows us to allow them to accrue their vacation time and then use it as best they see fit to fit their individual personal sort of family needs.
For example, a golf game between one of our employees and a cousin that has to take place almost every year, right?
Well,
That's
that is one of those employees that plans for that 2-week vacation and takes that vacation very routinely and very predictably and very mathematically. There are other employees who aren't quite so mathematical and so methodical in how they account for their vacation and use their vacation.
Pete, you had a question?
As Jeff was saying, the committee discussed this at length. The one thing that the committee was still concerned about is the utilization of vacation time to alleviate stress, making sure that our people are taking vacation as necessary, because it directly affects safety too. We've been able to maintain a pretty good safety record, and it's one of those things that vacation is there to give respite, give the batteries the charging, etc. for staff. We understood also that there was only 2 personnel that were affected by this, by statements from staff. And that's where, when it came up to the 4.5% amount, it was somewhat unsubstantiated as to why we had to go up to 4.5 times. And that's where the committee thought it was best to, continue to look at over the next year what were the needs based upon, objective criteria, as well as, just keeping it at 3.5%. And that's why you see the unanimous opinion of the committee to go with 3.5%. So. Or 3.5 times, excuse me.
There you go. Yes.
I'm wondering if someone were to accrue 2.5 or 3 times their maximum annual vacation accrual, is there a possibility they could take 2 months off at a time?
No, because vacation still has to be approved by the district, by the supervisor, and has to work within the confines of our operational needs.
Okay, it's not something they
No,
can...
just because someone has 2 months on the books, they can't say, I'm taking the next 2 months off. It still has to be something that they get through their supervisor, and I'm sure that would get to me about instantly in terms of a conversation. The most we've had is sort of a few 2-week vacations, but a few that go 7 to 10 days kind of thing. But we do, as Pete said, we have had 2 line employees that hit their maximum accrual rate and then no longer could accrue vacation, so they lost vacation time. And so there is sometimes a stigma, to people, hey, I'm working hard and now I'm losing my vacation time. And so we felt there was some opportunity here to move the number a little bit and gave the committee two options, and the committee settled on the 3.5 times and continue to look at it.
I'm sorry, you have something else?
No, that was all.
Quick question. Does payroll also inform the managers when the people are getting close to their limit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Were there any employees present at the committee meeting?
No.
So we didn't get any feedback from anyone?
No, this is something that's come up in some private conversations. People pulled me aside, in the hall and passing, kind of talking about what we do and how we do it.
And I've heard conversations about it for years, off and on. I mean, this has been a ongoing problem or situation. I don't know if you want to call it a problem, but we've been, for years.
Which one fixes the problem?
Well, I think both are options, and we're fine going with the 3.5 that the committee selected at this time, and if there's something happens, we'll report back.
Pleasure of the board. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
I'll certainly vote to support the 3.5, but I'm kind of a firm believer in people earn this vacation and we let them take it. They need to be using it. They don't need to be saving. They need to use it to take the break. They need to be using it to unwind. Maybe we need to make a bigger effort to focus a little more on taking your time.
Okay.
Recharge your batteries.
I'll second that motion.
Was that a motion?
Wasn't that a motion for 3.5?
I'll make the motion for the 3.5. That was just kind of my take on it, though.
All right.
Yes, Jim. Go ahead.
I want to agree with what's being said in that regard. However, I do understand the reasoning behind why this is happening, and I'm aware of those things happening. And I know when I was employed here, we had people who actually ran out of vacation time, and then when they got sick, they didn't have any time, and so we, gave up our own time for that, and then this would kind of take care of that particular situation, I'm sure.
I remember that.
But I think it needs to be looked at, because I'm a firm believer that a person needs to get away. I found 2 weeks was good, 3 weeks was great. And 4 weeks was even better.
And now it's all year, right?
Pardon me? Okay.
I'll let her stay with her.
Okay, any other comments by the board?
I
Stan?
wanted to make one. I wanted, my comment is that we are at least recognizing that the priority in the management of this vacation thing is that this is for the good of the district. And I think everybody has confirmed that it's a good thing for people to be able to get away. I think the important issue is that this does not carry weight other than it's available and it accrues, but it does not say that you as a manager must provide this if it has any impact on the operation of the district. So as long as we keep our priorities straight, giving people time off is a great thing, and I think it's a good thing to establish the necessity of having them use it, but I think it has to be made very clear this does not create a priority. People are not able to say, I've accumulated 4 weeks and I want to take 2, and the supervision says I can't afford to let you go for 2 weeks, and they think that they have a right to it. I don't think that that ought to be minimized in terms of the way that we deal with it. So,
Well, I can assure you I'll keep my priorities straight, Stan.
okay.
Okay? Any other comments by the board? Pleasure of the board.
Call for the question.
Okay. Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Curtis,
Yes.
Mr. Berg,
Yes.
Mr. Baggerly.
Yes. Move on to item 10, employees, cafeteria health insurance plan, premium increases, resolution number 2018-16.
So every year in right about this time is what is called open enrollment, and that the district purchases all of its health insurance plan through CalPERS. CalPERS calculates what the rates are going to be for a calendar year, provides us those rates. They send us a big stack of these kind of forms, and this covers 2019. So what we do is we go through and we maintain a spreadsheet of every employee, what their plan is that they've selected for their family. There's a number of plans. People have just a single, they have a single plus a spouse, they have family care, they choose different HMO or PPO plans. And we look through and see what those rates have done to some of those individual employees' plans. The last increase we did was in 2016 and 2017 and 18. We did not have increases in those cafeteria plan limits or the dollar amounts from CalPERS that amounted to anything that we couldn't handle within the amount that was allocated. However, this year, because of changes to CalPERS, some plans went up a little bit, some plans went up more. What we've done is we've proposed a change to the cafeteria plan of $85 a month, which would be added to the cafeteria plan amount, and then from that amount the employees would choose their plan level and provide for their families. All the other aspects of the cafeteria plan, the $650 cap on cashbacks and some of those things all remain the same. All the changes here is the dollar amount allocated per employee per month.
Questions by the board? This is pretty straightforward, I think.
I have a question on this. Does this have to do with the retired people also?
Yes. However, the district only pays for coverage up until Medicare, and then at Medicare age, then the district's plan becomes secondary to Medicare, and so our costs to the district actually go way down because Medicare is the primary.
Mm-hmm.
So although this amount raises the amount that could be taken by retirees, none of the Medicare supplemental plans come anywhere near this amount.
Robert, from a standpoint of being a retiree, should I vote on this?
Is it, I don't know if the answer that you received affects your particular situation. Do you take Medicare right now?
Yeah.
Then it's secondary. I don't think that's gonna be primary. If it was primary, then you'd have an issue.
Just clearing something up there.
Good call, thanks, Jack.
Yeah.
Pleasure of the board.
Move to approve.
Let's see, A, B, C, and D.
That's good.
Did you second?
I'll second A through D.
Okay. Call the roll,
Okay.
please.
Mr. Berg,
Yes.
Mr. Curtis,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Baggerly.
Yes, thank you. Item 11 is pretty pro forma. We do this every year. And unless there's been any change to the conflict of interest code, this should be a no-brainer, right?
I'd like to move for approval 11A and B.
Thank you.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes.
Mr. Berg,
Yes.
Mr. Batterly.
Yes, thank you. Item 12, incomplete contracts and purchases from fiscal year 2017 and 2018 budget adjustment number 2019-10.
These are all contracts that were in process as of the end of the last fiscal year. And so we're proposing to carry them over into the current year because they're not complete. All of them are fully funded within, the budgeted amounts that gets carried over from available cash. But these are things that we just aren't finished with yet.
And the people that we contract with would be very upset if we didn't carry them over, wouldn't they?
Vote to
we-
approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Berg,
Yes.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes.
I don't know why I keep wanting to say
Yes,
Mr.
for
Kaiser.
me too, so.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Kaiser, you
Yes.
said yes. Mr. Ulrich,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Batterly.
Yes, thank you. Now we're going to go out of sequence here and take items 16 through 20 as your information items for receipt and file.
I wanted to talk just briefly about item 16. We met, staff, we met with the Casitas water engineering staff to go over their water line projects that they have as part of their whole modernization program. They have quite an aggressive and extensive list of pipelines that they're going through. A number of these are going to be replacement lines, and so there are going to be issues of maintaining separation, horizontal separation between water and sewer. There's a statutory requirement that the water and sewer lines can't be closer than 10 feet apart. And so the engineers are all working together to make sure that the new water line can get installed and does not encroach within that separation. But we also need to make sure that we don't bump into water line, or they don't bump into sewer lines with our water line and so forth. So they're going to be working closely on trying to just coordinate both of those projects. It's going to be an extensive effort because in some areas, these are old areas of the city of Ojai where we don't know exactly where our lines are or the depths because of the condition of the as-built from back in the 20s through the 60s. So it's a little bit more critical that we stay in touch with them, maybe so on other projects. But we had a good meeting, and I think everybody's going to move forward in coordination there.
I assume that this isn't going to mean excavation. They have to open things up. Do we have work we can coordinate at the same time?
No, we took a quick look at that. It's probably not the kind of thing where you do work at the same time because we're usually a 10-foot separation. But there will be some issues where reconnecting water laterals to the new water line and avoiding the sewer mains and avoiding sewer laterals is going to be an issue. There are some locations where the existing water line and the existing sewer line were buried in the same trench years ago. And so uncovering those and making water connections and sewer connections is going to be critical, that they don't just use a backhoe to find the pipe.
That would be nice. Is our annuitant back to work on
Both of
something
them,
like this?
both of them are. Both of them are in the office from time to time. Depends on the week and the day, but both Ron and Jim are lending their expertise on this kind of thing. This is a perfect place for them to both lend their expertise. Both of them have been in contact with us to kind of help provide insight, so we avoid problems.
Going to keep Liz busy too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Stan, did you have a question?
Yeah, that 10-foot separation, Are they specific about whether or not that's vertical or horizontal or anything like it, or over? How do they
There is
measure
a,
that?
there is a state law,
100%.
the health code, that specifically dictates how far apart water and sewer have to be. You can encroach and be less than those dimensions, but if you are, you have to change the type of pipe you use so that you can't. The issue is you have to be 10 feet apart or higher in the water, because the theory is sewage won't leak up to a water line. But where you usually get into a problem is where sewer and water cross at a perpendicular or some kind of angle, and is sewer above the water or below, and what kind of pipe is used. And so there are specific requirements for what kind of pipe is used and how you go over sewer or under sewer, or how you cross. It's very detailed what you have to do, and I'm sure that they'll follow that, because you can't violate those sort of cross contamination kind of questions.
Now, does that requirement have a specific dictated timeline? In other words, are we obligated to do this as of a particular day or time or year?
No, well, the code goes back a number of years. Obviously, Casitas isn't going to dig up an existing line if it's in violation of that and just replace it in exactly the same location. What they will do is they will put in a new line and abandon the old line, so that the old, maybe less than code separation, now becomes, compliant with the code separation requirements. The problem is on these is roads curve, and water and sewer lines are built in straight lines. You don't generally curve a sewer line or a water line, and so you got to kind of do this diagonal geometric alignment to maintain the separation and crossover when you have to, and it becomes a geometric problem, but it becomes complicated when you also have to miss gas and electric and sewer and storm drain and all kinds of things that are in the fiber optics that are in the ground. And so, our goal in meeting with them was to say, what are you doing, when are you doing it, and how do we stay in touch so you don't bump into stuff and cause us a problem.
Thank you. Will it also offer an opportunity to improve our as-built maps?
Well, in some ways, we may find out some information when they pothole and find some things. We'll be able to glean some information, but it's going to be a tedious process for them.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Kat?
Yeah, is the requirement still 48 inches of cover on a water line?
I think it's
That's water.
36.
36.
I think it's 36 on a water line.
Okay.
And these separation and these cover are to the outside of pipe, where some people talk about flow line and things,
Yeah.
but if you have a 12-inch pipe and a 6-inch pipe, you still got to have that 10 feet from the outer diameter of that pipe, and so it may actually be more than 10 feet by the time you calculate into the flow, the center pipe to center pipe, maybe 10 or 11 or 12 feet, depending on the diameter. But it's just going to be a tedious process, and they're tearing up some old stuff.
Yeah, the biggest problem they got is so many of the lines are not actually in the street, in the roadway.
Well, I think they're going to have some problems on Ojai Avenue because there's so much in Ojai Avenue.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Not just us, but gas and fiber optic and telephone. The other street I think they're going to have some problems on is Kenyatta, because of the big box that goes down the center of the street.
Mm-hmm.
And so we actually have two sewer lines, one on each,
Right.
basically each curb line, because of the big box going down the center.
Storm drain?
Yeah, big storm drain. And so they're going to maybe have to have two water lines, but then getting two water lines in, missing gas, missing fiber optics, being 10 foot apart from us, and missing the box.
We already got both shoulders.
Boy, it's gonna be fun.
They may have to change pipe type to rather than some kind of compression fitting. They may have to go to full mechanical joints that are bolted, and it becomes expensive. But those are the separation issues. It was just a good meeting to make sure we're in coordination.
Thank you very much.
This high pressure gas line, that they've been putting in on Grand Avenue, I guess.
Oh,
That's
Oh,
a
I-
pretty big project, and I'm wondering whether or not they've looked at these issues and before they started that whole
Oh, yeah.
long process.
Oh, the gas company did a lot of excavation to figure out where everybody was. One of the reasons the gas line is where it is right down the center of the street is because there's so much on the south side of the street. They couldn't fit themselves in. So Casitas is probably going to have to go to the north side of the street and then cross back over the gas line and the sewer line. That street is not done getting torn up. That's for
Are there
sure.
any other questions or comments on items 17 through 20?
Move to receive and file.
Thank you. Second, anybody?
Second,
Thank you. Roll call.
I would just like to make one comment.
Yeah,
that
voice vote.
That's something we're gonna have to watch, because that's gonna impact and could create problems down the road, especially if they're going through the laterals and not replacing them properly.
Oh, well, they wouldn't do that. Okay.
Were you talking about receive and file 322, right?
No, we haven't gotten the director reports. So you can add in 22, I guess, because there isn't anything there. Director reports on meetings, seminars, or conferences attended. Anybody go anywhere? Do anything? No? Okay, then we can do 16 through 22.
I knew that.
You knew that.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we move on to item 23. Board member and general manager comments. Board members are up first. Anybody? Hearing none, general manager comments?
Yeah, just a few things. We coated with an epoxy liner 106 manholes around town this year. Pretty aggressive program. They just finished last week spark testing all of those. It's where they go in and wave, it's like a broom with an electric current over the inside of the manhole to look for pinholes where the epoxy didn't actually seal correctly. So not only did we coat them, but we spark tested all of them, and there were a couple of minor things, but they fixed them all. Part of our effort to keep that I&I. A couple of other things that I think were just raised to the level of letting you all know. We had
Actually, I want to, let me go back to the coating with the epoxy. Do you have an idea of how long these are supposed to last, and do you put that into a tickler file to go back out?
we put these into manholes. This product should last 20 years, but every year we do manhole inspections. When we seal them up with foam, we go and look at everything just to make sure things look fine.
Cool, thanks.
About a month or so ago, on our influent testing that we do in our influent water coming into the plant, we had a positive test for hexavalent chromium. Chromium 6 is the chromium product that was part of the Aaron Brockovich PG&E scandal a number of years ago. Hexavalent chromium is a corrosion inhibitor. It's not something that comes out of groundwater. It's not something you can buy in a bottle in the store. It's very hard to come by, so this had to come from somebody in our system using it. The test value wasn't of a high enough level to cause us a major contamination concern at all, but it is an interesting piece of data. There are a lot of chemicals that are used in our users throughout the system, and part of the pre-treatment program is also trying to figure out exactly what everybody's using, or at least what they tell us they're using. This just highlights how sensitive this whole pre-treatment program is, and how important it is that we really keep in touch with our users and figure out what's going on. Chromium 3 is actually a good chromium. It's what's in vitamins. But chromium-3 doesn't become chromium-6, and there's no crossover. Somebody actually used chromium-6 in something, and it's
Is it a cleaner?
it's usually a corrosion inhibitor in some sort of piping system. They used in the PG&E scandal that was in the groundwater. It was actually used in corrosion protection on transformers, and that's how it got into groundwater, because they were basically spraying it on the transformers to inhibit corrosion as part of PG&E's efforts. And that was
Where was that sample point, Jeff?
That's at the influent where the water comes into the plant. So, you know, it is a big task to go chase it down and figure out where it is. We have kind of a covert operation going to try and trace it down. But it just highlights how important it is that we stay in touch with what's going on in the district. And even though it's just a bunch of houses and restaurants around here, things are getting put in the sewer system that could potentially become major issues.
How far above was it, the MCL was it in there?
I don't think it was above the MCL, but it was above the testing level. I think if I remember right, it was either 13 or 15 parts per million.
Yeah, I think it was 11 genes, I remember.
And it's the first time we've ever had that.
That's the first time we've seen chromium.
So it does point out some type of illegal dumping may have occurred,
Or somebody's using something that they're not reporting, or you know, they're using it incorrectly, and
Ryan Street.
so we're going to try and chase it down.
Okay.
Yeah. Jeff?
Question. Was that at the influence station?
Yes.
Does the avenue pump into the influence station or directly into?
It pumps into the influence station.
Oh, it does.
So this is we maintain composite sampling and 24-hour individual hour samples that we have some samplers. So we're deploying some of our sampling equipment out into our system to look and see if we can find other similar sorts of hits of this chemical or like chemicals, and see if we can isolate where it's coming from. We have some ideas, and we're going to continue to chase those down. But it just highlights that the industry and the consumer products that are out there, and what you can buy from a variety of sources, either as a house, a restaurant, or an industry, many of those things could cause us testing and compliance problems.
Yeah, my thought was that Taco Bell and McDonald's are doing rehabs on their operations down there, and they could be in there cleaning up some equipment and things like that.
Like I said, we have quite a covert operation going on, and I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, okay.
Stan, quickly?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, do we have a structure that says if you run into one of these problems, what do you do? What do our employees know about what level to go to, how to report it, how to follow up on it? What's our crisis?
Every chemical is different, and every level that we see it is different. As soon as, in this case, David sees anything out of the norm, no matter what it is, whether it's a pharmaceutical or a heavy metal or a volatile compound, he instantly reports it both to me and Rick and Bradshaw. I mean, literally instantly the day we get the sample test results. So we're on top of what happens. It just is a little bit of one of those things of, you know, you hope you're a sleepy little small district and you don't have hexavalent chromium floating around in your system, but you know what? It happens. Pete.
Quickly, Jeff, based upon where the sample was taken, over the last several months we've had a lot of SCE activity, putting in new towers, changing out things, possibly dropping things, okay, that maybe contain certain fluids. I don't know if they have any type of continuity in the way of the lines to our system, but it's kind of a coincidence. I'm not trying to point fingers, but it's
No, I mean, there's several avenues of realistic. There could be it could be a complete chance that somebody just did something, or it could be from about 2 or 3 different areas or businesses that we're following up with. But it just highlights the issue. We have a bunch of other stuff, construction going on. It's busy. Everybody's staying busy with stuff. But I wanted to highlight a little bit about a meeting tomorrow. I'd sent you all an email. We had gotten a request from a couple of members of the public to come in and talk to us about reclaimed water. We've talked about this a number of times, but a community group came forward and said we'd really like to get a plant tour and talk about what it would take to, in their mind, or in their words, put our effluent into the lake. So I thought I would at least bring them in for a tour and have a comprehensive discussion about reclaimed water. They're coming to the plant tomorrow for a tour at 11:30, and we've put together a book that we're going to hand each of them, and I'll give to you so you're all on the same page in terms of the information. It's really a compendium of reclaimed water issues and sort of the steps that have occurred on reclaimed water since about the 1970s, regulations, river stuff, all kinds of things. So I'll give this to you tonight. You'll all have it. They'll all get it tomorrow. If anything comes out of the meeting or there's follow-up action items, I'll bring those to you, at least in terms of that discussion. But obviously water is an important topic in the valley right now, and we could or maybe or in some way be part of that, and I thought it would be at least appropriate to have a complete discussion of who we are, what we do, what we don't do, and what some of the constraints are to reclaim water. So I'll give these out to you now, and we'll see where tomorrow goes. So you get some leisure reading. It's about 75 pages.
When's the test?
Yes. And it's
There's a few
not
pictures in here.
When's the test?
Tomorrow at the meeting, we should.
Yeah, exactly.
Tomorrow at the meeting, the test.
Is that all you had, Jim?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I want to go back to board comments. There's something, I know I asked staff to point out to you that ad that was in the Ojai Valley News on the active transportation project in front of the high school.
Yes.
Are we planning to make any sort of presentation the 29th? We've already passed the 20th meeting.
I went to the meeting of the 20th.
Did you? You did.
So the active transportation program is a grant the city of Ojai has obtained through state funding to provide enhanced bike lane access to schools, safe routes to schools, as well as bike lanes primarily along Maricopa Highway from the Roblar, the 5 Points, up to the Y, out the Y, all the way to Gridley. For the most part, we don't have an issue with providing bicycle lanes or bicycle safety or pedestrian safety kind of questions. Those are not really of any concern of ours. What is of concern of ours is that the ATP project imposes some structural building of medians and concrete and lane configurations that really impact our operations. Primarily right in the vicinity of Kenyatta Street and on Maricopa Highway from the hospital all the way out to the Y. The plan from the city is to take the 4-lane section and turn it into a 2-lane section and plant trees and put a bike lane in the number 2 or outer lanes, which is fine from a bicycle safety perspective, except that our main line in the manholes that we maintain those systems is in the number 1 lane. So if the city takes away the 2nd lane with trees and a bike lane, and then we close the number 1 lane to do maintenance, the effective action would be that the Maricopa Highway between the hospital and the Y is completely closed to all traffic in one direction. The city gets to pursue design and alternatives and work through Caltrans and CEQA. They get to do what they want to do with their street if they can get it approved, I think. is sort of my approach. But we're going to have to close that street. If an emergency happens on that line and we have to get in there during a football game or 4th of July or something, we're going to close the street to do the maintenance when the stadium and the high school is full of people. I implored them to come up with some alternatives, and they weren't open to any alternatives at the meeting. So I've requested a whole list of contacts from them, and we'll write a detailed technical response to the issues. We cannot put our workers in a position where they are working in oncoming traffic, creating a crush zone, which would happen at Kenyatta Street, or I think completely closing the road is quite a problem. And I think planting trees intentionally over the top of a sewer line where we can get root intrusion is also not the wisest solution as well. So it's an ongoing discussion. But I did go to the meeting, made a presentation, listened to the presentation. I'll follow up on the next meeting with the City Council and the Planning Commission.
Thanks. Stan, you have a question?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask which city organizations are involved in this. Is it the council?
The staff is managing the project. The meeting on the 20th was at the Women's Center and was presented by the Public Works Department, and Councilmember Francina was there. I don't think any of the other council members or planning commissioners were there.
So, no alternatives have arrived?
No, we actually heard about this project in February of 2017. Staff got a invitation to see a presentation by the Public Works staff of the project at that point in time. Since February 17th until today, we have not seen a single alternative that considers anything other than what we saw in February 17th. So there's been no change in the plan, there's been no change in alternatives, there's been no change or discussion over the issues we raised back in February 2017 and in August of 17 as well. So the contact list that I've asked for is all of the contacts at the state and the Fed that are responsible for providing the city the money, and we'll be writing a long technical letter to them in line with the letter we wrote to the city in August of 17 and outlining both to CEQA people at the Caltrans and Fed offices of the issues that we have with the project. I've also asked for, it was presented on the 20th that the hospital, the schools, the police and fire have all approved the concept plan, and so I asked the city to provide me the contacts and the letters of certification that the hospital, the fire, and the police have provided the city, saying they're in support of this project, and I'll follow up with them, letting them know our concerns about the closure of traffic in front of the hospital.
I'd like to point out that the next meeting is on September 29th. That's a Saturday from 10 to 12 at City Hall. This is a pretty important project, and I think we all ought to weigh in. Maybe we need to have a quorum notice for the board members who would like to show up.
Sorry, Russ, the date on that again?
The 29th, it's a Saturday,
And the times?
Coming Saturday, right?
This coming Saturday.
coming Saturday,
Yeah, what's
10
up?
a.m. to noon
Thank you.
at City Hall.
Is there a process or an emergency trigger when we run into something like this, that we can push the button and it says, whoa, wait a minute, you forgot that there's an impact on, or an emergency impact? You've been involved with the Planning Commission.
Well, Stan, I'll speak really from our perspective as an agency to agency. There are a lot of personal contacts that can reach out between agencies and people living in the community. That's completely appropriate and happens many times. On a project like this, the city is the lead agency. The city is a responsible agency. We as another agency can send them a letter. We can say, here are our concerns, and it's up to the city to take our concerns and follow an appropriate evaluation of those concerns and appropriate development of alternatives to address those concerns under CEQA, and then approve a project that meets those concerns. Since February of 2017, there has been no alternatives developed or no discussion about how to alleviate.
Where was the button that you pushed that said you can't do this?
Well, you know, there isn't one, Stan, where we get to stop the city if they don't want to be stopped. If they want to do it and they want to go forward with the project, they can do a CEQA study. They can file a statement of overriding considerations as part of that CEQA study and completely overrule our objections and go forward with it anyway. But I don't know where it is with the city, and I don't know who's doing CEQA because I've asked and I've been unable to get a copy of the CEQA document for the project.
So there is no way to deal with this officially.
No, if they want to go forward, they can legally go forward as an agency. They're the lead agency.
Let me ask Mr. Quillisi, you ran the planning department, the commission. What would be a reasonable method or process or emergency button that an agency can push that said, hey, hold it, you know,
Stan,
you forgot to.
we've moved way beyond the where we should be for this discussion, okay?
Are we?
Yep,
Yeah.
we are. So, if you want to ask for it to be taken up by a committee, that's another story.
Yeah.
Pete?
Yeah, I just have a real quick comment. Thank you, Jeff, for bringing this before the board. It is a most important issue, obviously in protection of our staff, but also in protection of the general public, for that matter. Heck, if somebody has to, be taken by ambulance and they're in a life and death situation, and they have to take a circuitous route around to get to the hospital, and minutes count, you got an issue. You got a big issue. I'm assuming that once you get that list, you talk to fire, you talk to the sheriff's department, as well as the ambulance service here in the valley. I think they'll probably share our concerns. And Mr. Kwong, it seems to me this kind of opens up potentially the city for some liability and litigation too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I can't. I'm not going to opine on this. It's not on the agenda.
Thank you.
If we want the city here to have a question, we can do that.
Sure.
But yeah, there's a way of dealing with this, and the general manager is doing the best as he can to talk to the people.
Okay.
Where are we?
Does that answer a question that I had? Like where the button that you
It's
push?
way down here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No, seriously, when you,
No, let's move on.
we're involved, but we're
We're
involved in
gonna
the
move to
management.
closed session on items 13 and 14. So I thank you all for coming, and if you'd like to wait outside.
You need to read there. Do you want to read
Yeah,
them?
I can read them. It's the intention of the Board of Directors of the Ojai Valley Sanitary Districts to go into closed session on items 13 and 14. Closed session conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, one case pursuant to Government Code Section 54959.9, 56.9, and closed session, public employee performance evaluation, general manager pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. That's all non-essential personnel to exit the room at this point in time.